the gun grab has been once again delayed until 2025. And you and I frequently joke, the guns were so dangerous that they had to be left in the hands of law-abiding Canadians for 5 years from the
Yeah,
date of their ban.
that's right. Guns so dangerous that you're forced to keep them for 5.5 years minimum, right? So, and it's funny that they've kind of extended this out towards the next mandated federal election. So, it kind of gives nod to the fact that this is purely political. But yeah, this is a big, crazy idea that was born out of the political opportunity of the Nova Scotia shooting. They
Yep.
capitalized on that and the grief that Canadians were going through. The problem is they had no idea how to do it. I've said right from the beginning, it's virtually impossible. And here we are. They still have no clue what they're going to do. Nobody wants to touch it. And I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, but that doesn't stop them from spending money on it.
Oh, yeah.
I think the National Post reported, they say the National Post reports it as Ottawa, but I'm like, that's the federal Liberals. Don't blame
Right.
it on the city. But Ottawa's already spent $42 million on their Liberal gun buyback, and I use big scare quotes when I say buyback because federal government didn't own these guns in the first place. So they've spent $42 million. They haven't taken, thankfully, this is one of those times where I cheer for government ineptitude. They haven't taken a single firearm from the hands of law-abiding Canadians, and yet, they're just blowing money on this thing left, right, and center.
Oh, yeah. And they've budgeted, I think, $30.4 million over the next 2 years on this program, which, is a considerable amount of money, but it's also a strong indicator that they're not actually going to buy any guns because that number would be in the hundreds of millions, if not billions. So it's just the running of the bureaucracy of a program that does not even exist is costing taxpayers tens of millions of dollars a year. And for what? That money would be better rerouted, focusing on stopping the flow of illegal guns across the border. But hey, call me crazy, right?
Yeah, I was just reading this National Post article, and thankfully, a good friend to the firearms owning community, Senator Don Plett,
Yes.
he was the guy behind getting this data. There are 60 public safety department employees working full time on this. Just
Yeah.
think about the difference that 60 extra cops in a city like Toronto would make. Instead, we've got pencil pushers trying to justify their existence in a cubicle in Ottawa somewhere.
Yeah. And I mean, meanwhile, they still have no idea how to do it. But you're right. Think what 60 cops could do out there for public safety, or 60 more border agents to do the what do you call it? Like investigations, like search through cars and rail cars and all the things coming across the border. You could not just find illegal guns, but you could stop drugs, you could stop human trafficking. Like there's all
Mm.
kinds of benefits to public safety, to focusing your resources and your attention on the things that really matter. But this government is intent on focusing it on legal gun owners instead. And meanwhile, they've had zero success. And yeah, I also am cheering their incompetence.
Yeah,
Yes.
go government incompetence for once in my life.
Yes.
We're also finding out a little bit about some of the companies that are wanting to become involved in this, and some of them that actually have become involved in the buyback program. For example, IBM was awarded a $2.27 million contract to develop, design, and implement the program, which nobody's done yet, so that's okay.
Shocking.
But who else is involved in this that we know of?
Well, the Liberals have tried really hard to get Canada Post involved, and it's sort of been a big hoopla in the media again, which is funny because they declined 2 years ago. So it's not really news, but it's been dragged back up into the news cycle by the anti gun lobby groups, who, of course, are losing their minds that the doors of gun owners aren't being kicked in yet. And Canada Post is once again saying, forget it. Like they are not equipped for a program of this caliber. You're talking about 500,000 rifles. I can't even imagine what that looks like, right? So yeah, it would be incredibly unsafe and for everybody involved. And yeah, nobody will actually touch it. Law enforcement has refused. The Army's refused. So yeah, IBM's happy to, of course, spend a whole bunch of money developing a program, but nobody's there to carry it through. So yay.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on the numbers of firearms that are potentially affected by this. I think we'd have a tough time ever even coming up with an estimate. I think yours on the high end is probably right. The federal government, however,
Hmm.
says that there will be and the numbers, like the distance between their low and high end are like miles apart. That between 10,000 and 15,000 newly prohibited firearms are in the hands of Canadian businesses, and anywhere between 125,000 and 200,000 are owned by licensed individuals. Uh, uh, but on the other hand, how the heck would they ever know? Because many of
Yeah.
these firearms moved from non-restricted, so you were just allowed to own them, all the way over to prohibited. And there's really no record of that firearm. So I don't know how the government could know how many SKSs are out there. Like they're just guessing at this point.
Yeah, well, and they intentionally lowball it because then if it ever does get off the ground, when participation is low and they only manage to scrounge up 100,000 guns, they can, claim that it was some major success. That's exactly what happened in New Zealand. But there's 97,000 legally owned AR-15s in this
Mhm.
country alone. And that's one of
Just
2,000
one. Yeah.
right, models and variants that they banned, right? So I know the CSAAA did some work using import records because although the majority of the firearms that were banned in 2020, other than the AR-15, were not registered. So they have no idea who's got them, where they are, and how many are out there. However, import records used by the CSAAA, they came up with a number of about 518,000 firearms affected. And I think that would probably be far more accurate than Bill Blair lowballing some number to make their failure look more like a success.